Anyway, it was quintessential Trump. It was a lot of bluster. It was a lot of bombast. It was a lot of bullshit. But they don't even pretend to be civil anymore. They don't even pretend not to be racist anymore. At this point, Republicans just stand up and be like, the Republicans just be like, fuck it. But it's our time. We just gonna do what we do, and y'all just gonna have to deal with it. Listen to this, and shout out to Aaron Rupar, who y'all know. He's been on this channel before, and he's a great reporter. Follows Trump very closely, and I was following his stream on Twitter, and so he's pulled out some great quotes, and I'm gonna pull some of his quotes that he pulled from Fox News and other places, because it's absolutely fascinating to watch Donald Trump, sell this crazy vision of America that's not true, to overstate his victories, even though he's only 6 weeks in, to understate his losses, to minimize the dangers of his policies, and to just say wild stuff with absolutely no consequence at all. Listen to your boy as he's complaining basically about government waste. Here's how he talks about it.
$8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. 32.
So again, the man's got comedic timing. His team knows how to play to the cheap seats, knows how to play to the mainstream, knows how to get a good laugh. They know right now that saying anything LGBTQIA is fodder. It's red meat for lots of people. You saw lots of Democrats say that they don't support Trump's policies, but they love how he sticks it to the trans folk. They didn't say it like that, but that's basically what they were talking about. I don't want a trans bathroom, God forbid. So I'll take these shitty economic policies that ruined my whole life. This is some significant chunks of Trump's base saying this kind of stuff. But anyway, so when he says LGBTQIA, he already knows he got him. And then when he says that it's in, he said Lesotho, which no one's ever heard of. He's of course talking about Lesotho, and it's a country that, of course, people have heard of because we're not ignorant people. If you are in, social studies class, geography, elementary school, middle school, if you went to a decent public school, private school, whatever, you should have heard of the country. But that's another story for another time. But he's literally mocking an African country, and people are laughing at it. They're actually finding it funny. And it's like, we're not 6 years old, But look at how they laugh. Look at how these white men are laughing in the background as he talks about Lesotho.
$8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and
the ignorance of saying, which no one has ever heard of. How dare you? Seriously, how dare you? And they're just laughing like it's a comedy room.
And Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America.
Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. For the record, in case you care, Colombia is not in Central America. Should the president know that? Yes. He also should know about Lesotho. So what are you going to do, right? We know he's ignorant, but we'll continue.
$60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This
Again,
is real.
playing into
$32 million.
Playing into
$8 million to promote LGBT.
Playing into the panic around. There's a moral panic. There's a political panic around LGBT, particularly around trans folk, that Trump is playing into as well. This is not a drill. This is not a game. This is him. There's levels of ignorance here that are rarely seen There's another moment here where he tried it around these egg prices, which I think again it's an important moment here. I want you to watch it. Pay attention here. Pay attention to what your boy Donald Trump did.
Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job.
Again, now the price of eggs, which is almost like a political cliche at this stage, there was a moment where everyone was up in an uproar about the price of eggs. And he blamed it on Biden. And he said, if I'm president, I'll lower the price of eggs. Then he becomes president, and magically the price of eggs doesn't drop. Then suddenly it's not that he has the power to lower the price of eggs. It's the global markets, it's supply chains, it's bird flu, it's blah, 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 blah. It's all these reasons. It's all these reasons why it's not his fault. But somehow he can't fix it, but Biden could make it that way. This is the narrative. But if you notice in the crowd, people were groaning. That wasn't Republicans groaning at Biden. That was Democrats and other people saying, this is some dumb shit. This is some dumb shit. Please don't try to convince us, Mr. President, that somehow the price of eggs is singularly Joe Biden's fault, but can't be your fault as well. Pick one. Either the president can control this or they can't. It's not that only president can control it when it's not you. But this is a classic Donald Trump move. Promise a bunch, lie a lot, and then when it comes time, just bait and switch. This is how he moves in the world. This is how he functions. And there's a narcissism to it. I mean, watch him here as he's literally chiding Democrats for not loving him enough in public.
Such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad. Fifth such speech to Congress.
So
it's
an interesting thing. Excuse me, sorry about that audio. I'm running a little slow here with the audio, but it's an interesting thing. I've never seen a State of the Union address or a joint chamber address where it's not deeply and unabashedly partisan, where the Democrats rise for Democrats and they stay quiet for Republicans, and Republicans do the same for themselves and for Democrats, right? It's just what the thing is. But Trump is saying, forget everything you've ever seen and everything you've ever known about this topic. Forget the fact that this happens everywhere. We're going to pretend that this is only happening here, that Democrats aren't standing for me at all, and that's because I'm me. In other words, he's the victim. He's the singular figure, that Democrats are bitterly partisan and Republicans are being fair-minded. It's all bullshit, right? I mean, again, if you've watched any of these, you realize that they're all like this. They do it to every president. They do it to every candidate. That's just what these things are. That's why I hate them, right? Because they're nothing but political theater. I hate when Democrats do them. I hate when Republicans do them. I hate these things. But Trump has a way of making it seem as if something unique is happening to him and that he's uniquely being victimized by this stuff. Trump came out swinging ideologically as well, right? He was saying all the talking points. It was like a campaign rally in certain ways. He's attacking LGBTQIA, he's attacking African nations. He's also, once again, waging war on this imaginary foe known as wokeness.
We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer.
First of all, just white people. When y'all get one of our phrases, y'all have that, y'all put that shit in the chokehold. If I never hear woke again, woke, it was such a useful term. It was great when Spike Lee was, telling us to wake up and, do the right thing, etc. When Black arts movement poets use sleep as a kind of mechanism for talking about consciousness or lack thereof. When the Nation of Islam did it, when Erykah Badu said "stay woke," I mean, all of it was beautiful and dope and so entrenched in blackness and black truth telling. And then white people got their hands on it, and y'all just did some other shit with it. Please, y'all, don't never say that shit again. Jesus Christ! But beyond the wokeness, this was a critique of DEI, and this was a celebration that he had gotten rid of DEI and all the federal agencies. And they are standing to their feet. I mean, even, and I know it's a petty point, but look at this handkerchief head Negro right here. Look, you see Tim Scott there? Can I zoom in? I can't zoom in, but I promise you, he's there standing up for the absence of DEI. When Negro, you are the DEI in this room. You are literally the DEI in this room. Knock it off, Tim Scott. But just pay. Y'all see him? Y'all see your boy there? Yeah, I don't know if y'all can see him. Look right here. Look right here. The one fly in the buttermilk is right here. And it's ironic that this Negro will be the one doing this. But whatever. That's no extra charge for that comment. That ain't the main point. It's just something I wanted to point out. I just don't understand these people. I don't understand y'all people, man. I don't understand it. And he continues with his war on trans folk. It is becoming a weird obsession this guy has. Listen to what I'm saying.
The men off the girls. Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls team, or they will lose all federal funding. Peyton. Again,
the language that he uses, kicking the men off the girls team, so misgendering trans people. You didn't have to call them men. That's an assault. That's an attack rhetorically on trans folk, and it's unnecessary. Look, we can have spirited debates about trans athletics or trans sibs in athletics. Like, what does that mean? What does it look like? How do we do it? I'm down to have that conversation, but he's not trying to have a conversation. He's trying to antagonize. He's trying to be hateful. He's trying to dehumanize. That's the fundamental issue. That's the fundamental issue, and that's the one that I just can't rock with. I just cannot rock with it. It's unnecessary. And it's also, again, a solution in search of a problem. Whatever you think about trans folk in sports, the idea of having to dedicate federal agency energy, federal resources to stopping this thing that is such a small part of the conversation, such a small part of the landscape. I mean, you have that many trans athletes that you're stripping funding from programs. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like this isn't where our energy should be devoted, even if you happen to disagree with it. And I am not of the belief that everybody who disagrees with trans women, because this is really what they're talking about. They don't really care about a trans man boxing or playing basketball or baseball or football, because they believe that natural selection wins out. That's their argument. I'm not saying it's true or not, but that's their argument. But when they talk about trans women playing basketball or baseball or whatever, how do I put this? I don't believe that everybody who believes that they should not play is transphobic or trans antagonistic. I think it's possible to just have a legitimate philosophical or ideological disagreement on this. But the right is making this their priority issue, and they're framing it as if it's the left's priority issue. They're playing on transphobia. They're playing on all these masculine anxieties. It's just a bizarre, it's just a bizarre conversation to have. As Rosability said, trans folks are such a tiny percent of the population. It's a manufactured issue. But that's why I think Democrats went wrong. Democrats didn't address economic issues enough. They didn't talk about the exportation of jobs. They didn't talk about all these things that are really nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes issues. And they focused on, they were responding to the right-wing attack on trans people by prioritizing that issue, but not speaking to the economic stuff too. And in doing so, I just think they paint themselves in the corner. They play right into the right-wing hands. I'm not saying they should have ignored trans issues. I'm saying they did it in a way that was only reactionary and responsive, not substantively engaging what I think might actually be the issues of the day, even with regard to trans people. So anyway, it was a fascinating moment, a fascinating opportunity that could have gone differently. I'm just going to show you a couple more clips, then we can move on to another topic before we go. But I want y'all to get a real taste of what what Trump was talking about, and what Trump was promising. Listen to him talking about. I'm going to show you two clips of him talking about tariffs.
They're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're uninspected. They may be very dirty and disgusting, and they come in and they pour in and they hurt our American farmers. The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers starting on April 2nd. It may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases. And I said, just bear with me. And they did. They did. Probably have to bear with me again. And this will be even better. That was great. The problem with it was that Biden didn't enforce it. He didn't enforce it. $50 billion of purchases, goods that come in from other countries and companies. They're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much. No, you're not. Oh. Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but
that little disturbance that he's talking about might be China and other countries retaliating, imposing their own tariffs. It could be us being iced out of the global market. It could be wild inflation here. I mean, I did an interview yesterday for Al Jazeera for Upfront, which you should watch on Friday. Check it out, please. It's on Upfront, Al Jazeera, with Richard Wolff, one of the great economists of the 20th century, who talked about the tariffs and what they could mean and why they're a terrible idea and how they're such a facile, a sophomoric response to Donald Trump's stated concerns. And that tariffs are one, a kind of desperate move by an empire in decline, but also how the shit ain't going to work. And that little disturbance he's talking about are huge economic hiccups that are going to be passed on to the American people. He talked about some domestic stuff too. Some particularly some criminal justice stuff that I think you all might find interesting. Listen to Donald Trump as he talks about the death penalty and imposing potentially the death penalty on people who kill.
Requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer. And tonight I'm asking Congress to pass that policy into permanent law. Executive order requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that Trump wins off of, that he thrives off of. You know, a lot of people believe in the death penalty. I don't, obviously, but a lot of people do. And a lot of people believe in police. And if you believe in the death penalty, you're going to think the police are the best people to be protected through it, right? It's not a terrible idea for his base. It's not a terrible idea for people who believe in the Blue Lives Matter and who believe in law and order and all this other stuff. Those are the things that make Donald Trump seem reasonable to people. Like, look, this is what we always wanted to see. He's just one of us. Again, how that gets imposed and how that gets enforced is a different conversation. And after talking about the death penalty, which again I oppose, and Donald Trump, just keeps playing into, Donald Trump was like, you know what? I haven't talked about trans people in like 30 seconds. So he jumps right back into it and starts back with trans folk, this time talking about trans folk in relation to education.
Administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools. A few years ago, January, Littlejohn and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually, all without telling January, who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So a situation happens where a student or a young person, whatever, is trans and they're transitioning, and a community of people are trying to support them and to help them do so by not going by their dead name, but allowing them to use a name that reflects their gender identity, that supports them and invests in them. And should you have conversation and communication with their parents? Absolutely. Nobody should be going through this process without their parents involved and their parents in the know. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is Trump is painting a narrative that makes it seem as if the school made this girl trans, if there was a conspiracy to turn somebody trans, and that this girl was just doing it and the parents just found out, and that they are the victims of this gross educational conspiracy, as opposed to what actually happened, and this is why. But again, there are people who believe in that, who believe that that's possible, and that's how Trump wins. Anyway, I could go on and on and on. Trump talked about making the United States the most dominant civilization ever. What kind of goal is that? Right? He's talked about all kinds of other things, but at the end of the day, it was exactly what you think it would be. The speech, it was as Trump can get. And watching the Republicans all come back with their leather jackets on now that Trump's president again, feeling cool and tough, is bizarre.